Jnana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipano Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarano Tribhuvane Manyo Saranyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyugo Sri Jiva Gopalago. Translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, Shri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they're worth taking shelter of, because they're absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. So we're reading and studying from the Nectar of Devotion. It's not exactly a straight reading that we're doing lately. We started out that way, but now it's also stopping to consider and reflect on different passages. Try to get a little more insight into what's being discussed. So this is the Nectar of Devotion. It's a summary study of Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and it's presented by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And this is chapter 36, Transcendental Affection, with a subtitle, Servitude. What's being discussed here is really for devotees. Devotees are those souls who have accepted the Supreme Personality of Godhead's representative and are approaching the personality of Godhead through devotional service. It's been said previously, others won't be able to understand what's being discussed here because these are not material topics, they're spiritual topics. So I'm studying this, and I'm also recording, reading out loud, and reflecting on what I'm hearing, and it's being recorded. So, Hare Krishna. It's chapter 36, Transcendental Affection, subtitle Servitude. The transcendental mellow of affection has been accepted by authorities like Sridhar Swami as a perfectional stage of devotion. It is just above the humor of neutrality and is a requisite for the development of the serving humor. Affection. It's just above we were discussing, it was being discussed previously about the level of realization of Brahman, or the undifferentiated spiritual energy of the Lord. It's an aspect of the Supreme Being. He has this aspect of undifferentiated energy. And it's possible for someone to achieve that by simply observing the way the world works around them. Under their own mental abilities, they can come to that understanding. But it's not until they come in contact with devotees of the Lord that they can enter into the mood of devotion, and this is where affection develops. it's not possible to have affection for an undifferentiated energy. No form, no pastimes, no activities. There's no question of affection. So just stepping out of that, and by the association of the devotees of the Lord, some affection can begin to develop. This is on the way to love of God. So everything's spiritual, but now some affection can develop. It says, just above the humor of neutrality, it is a requisite for development of the serving humor. Yeah, it's not possible to have a serving mood toward undifferentiated energy. So once this little bit of affection starts to develop by the mercy of the devotees, then it's possible for the attitude of service to begin to develop, service and affection. In literature such as Nam Kamodi, this state of existence is accepted as continual affection for or attraction to Krsna. Okay. Continual affection for or attraction to Krsna. Authorities like Sukadev consider this stage of affection to be a neutral stage, but in any case, this affection is relished by the devotees in different transcendental tastes, and therefore the general name for this state is affection, or pure affection, for Krsna. So what we've been doing with words is looking them up in the dictionary to get some of the finer meanings. So this word affection, oh yeah, I know what affection means. Well, let's see some of the finer meanings of affection. Oops. Wrong. Here. What the dictionary. Fondness, love, liking, tenderness, warmth, devotion, endearment, care, caring, friendship. So those are some of the words associated with affection. Fondness, liking, love, tenderness, warmth, devotion. So these are all very accepting, open moods, becoming very open. Fondness, love, liking, tenderness, care, friendship. Feelings of love. So this is where the affection is developing. It starts to develop just past the Brahman realization. Authorities like Sukadev consider this stage of affection to be in the neutral stage, but in any case, the affection is relished by the devotees in different transcendental tastes. Therefore, the general name for this state is affection, or pure affection for Krsna. So there's variety within this affection. Love, liking, fondness, attachment, endearment, attraction. Devotees engaged in servitude are attached to Krsna in the affection of reverence. Some of the inhabitants of Gokula, Vrindavan, are, as exhibited on earth, are attached to Krsna on this platform of affection in reverence. So we're going to take a look at that word too. Devotees are attached to Krsna in reverence, servitude and reverence. Some of the finer shades. deep respect for something or someone, high esteem, high regard, acclaim, admiration, appreciation, estimation. See, that helps to look at that word, reverence. Of course, awe and reverence, but high esteem, high regard. So someone in the mood of servitorship to Krishna is relating to Krishna like this: high esteem, high regard, great respect, admiration, appreciation, estimation, reverence. Okay, let's get a little clearer picture of what this servitude mood is. The inhabitants of Vrindavan used to say, quote, Krishna is always manifest before us with a complexion like a blackish cloud. He holds his wonderful flute in his lotus hands. He's dressed in yellow silks and bedecked with a peacock feather on his head. When Krishna walks near Govardhan Hill with these personal features, all the inhabitants of the heavenly planets, as well as the inhabitants of this earth, feel transcendental bliss and consider themselves the eternal servants of the Lord. End quote. So we would expect that high esteem, admiration, respect, they're all manifest in this description. Sometimes a devotee becomes filled with the same awe and reverence by seeing a picture of Vishnu, who is dressed like Krishna and who has a similar complexion. The only difference is that Vishnu has 4 hands, in which he holds the conch shell, the disc, the club, and the lotus flower. Lord Vishnu is always decorated with many valuable jewels, such as the Chandrakanta stone and the Suryakanta stone. So this attitude of servitorship can also be experienced of awe and reverence, high esteem, admiration, of seeing Vishnu forms, the 4-armed form of the Lord, Narayana. The only difference is that Vishnu has the 4 hands, holding the 2 weapons and the 2 blessings. The club and the disc for the inimical, the conch shell and the lotus flower for the favorable. So this affection can be felt for Vishnu form also, in the mood of servitorship and awe and reverence. In the Lalita Madhava by Rupa Goswami, there's the following statement by Daruka, one of the servants of Krishna, quote, Certainly Lord Vishnu is very beautiful with his necklace of Kaustubha jewels, his 4 hands holding conch shell, disc, club, lotus flower, and his dazzling beautiful jewelry. He's also very beautiful in his eternal position, riding upon the shoulder of Garuda. But now, the same Lord Vishnu is present as the enemy of Kamsa, and by his personal feature I'm completely forgetting the opulence of Vaikuntha. End quote. So Daruka is related to Krishna in the mood of servitorship. It's interesting how that switches over from the four-handed form of Lord Vishnu to Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa. Daruka is saying he's forgetting the opulence of Vaikuntha. But still, the mood of high esteem and respect is there as suitable for someone in the mood of servitude. Another devotee once said, quote, This Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whose bodily pores come millions of universes, permanently rising, who is the ocean of mercy, the owner of inconceivable energies, who is always equipped with all perfections, the origin of all incarnations, the attraction for all liberated persons, this very Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supreme Controller, supremely worshipable, all-cognizant, fully determined, fully opulent, the emblem of forgiveness, the protector of surrendered souls, munificent, true to his promise, expert, all-auspicious, powerful, religious, a strict follower of the Scripture, the friend of the devotees, magnanimous, influential, grateful, reputable, respectable, full of all strength, and submissive to pure love. Surely, he is the only shelter of devotees who are attracted to him by the affection of servitorship. A long list there of all the qualities which are admired by this devotee who is praising the Lord like this, showing the awe and reverence connected to the Supreme Lord, holding him in very high esteem. The devotees of the Lord in servitude are divided into 4 classes. Appointed servants, such as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, who are appointed to control over the material modes of passion and ignorance. Okay, that's one class, the appointed servants like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Devotees in servitude who are protected by the Lord, devotees who are always associates, and devotees who are simply following in the footsteps of the Lord. So there's 4 classes of servants. First class mentioned is appointed servants. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, who are appointed a particular service to control over the material modes. Well, that's an example, but other appointed servants have other duties. The idea is they're appointed. Devotees in servitude who are protected by the Lord. Devotees who are always associates, and devotees who are simply following in the footsteps of the Lord. So these are the 4 classes of devotees in the mood of servitorship. In a conversation between Jambavati, one of Krishna's wives, and Kalindi, her friend, Jambavati inquired, quote, "Who is this personality circumambulating our Krishna?" End quote. Kalindi replied, "He is Ambikeya, the superintendent of all universal affairs." End quote. Then Jambavati inquired, "Who is this personality who is trembling at the sight of Krishna?" End quote. Kalindi replied, "He is Lord Shiva." Then Jambavati inquired, "Who is this person offering prayers?" Kalindi replied, "He is Lord Brahma." Jambavati then asked, "Who is that person who has fallen on the ground in offering respect to Krishna?" Kalindi replied, "He is Indra, the king of heaven." Jambavati next inquired, "Who is this person who has come with the demigods and is laughing with them?" Kalindi replied, "He is my elder brother Yamaraj, the superintendent of death." This conversation offers a description of all the demigods, including Yamaraj, who are engaged in the services appointed by the Lord. They're called Adhikrita Devata, or demigods appointed to particular types of departmental service. One resident of Vrindavan once told Lord Krishna, quote, "My dear Krishna, O pleasure of Vrindavan, being afraid of this material existence, we've taken shelter of you, for you can completely protect us. We are well aware of your greatness. As such, we've given up our desire for liberation and have taken complete shelter under your lotus feet. Since we've heard about your ever-increasing transcendental love, we've voluntarily engaged ourselves in your transcendental service." End quote. This statement is by a devotee who is under the protection and shelter of Lord Krishna. You read that again. It's a resident of Vrindavan who is in the category of under the protection and shelter of Lord Krishna. So the devotee prays, "My dear Krishna, O pleasure of Vrindavan, being afraid of this material existence, we have taken shelter of you, for you can completely protect us. We are well aware of your greatness. As such, we've given up our desire for liberation and have taken complete shelter under your lotus feet. Since we've heard about your ever-increasing transcendental love, we have voluntarily engaged ourselves in your transcendental service." So the predominating mood here is one of service, with the idea of taking shelter, being protected. The devotee is expressing how afraid of material existence. We've come to you for shelter. So that's the second type of devotee in servitude, mood of servitorship is characteristic like that. They're taking shelter of Krishna out of fear of the material existence. They're engaging in devotional service. And the element of affection is there. Since we've heard about your ever-increasing transcendental love, so they're attracted to that aspect of the Lord, loving devotional service in servitorship. Upon being chastised by Krishna's constant kicking on his head, Kaliya, the black snake of the Yamuna, came to his senses and admitted, quote, "My dear Lord, I've been so offensive unto you, but still you're so kind that you've marked my head with the impression of your lotus feet." End quote. This also is an instance of one's taking shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna. How that would be the mood of servitorship to the Lord. But here it's given as an example that taking shelter of the Lord. And Kali is saying, but still you're so kind. You've marked my head with the impression of your lotus feet. So we have that element of affection there, appreciation, affection. In the Aparad Bhajan, a pure devotee expresses his feelings, quote, "My dear Lord, I'm ashamed to admit before you that I have carried out the orders of my masters named lust, anger, avarice, illusion, and envy. Sometimes I've carried out their orders in a way most abominable, yet in spite of my serving them so faithfully, they're neither satisfied nor are they kind enough to give me relief from their service. They're not even ashamed of taking service from me in that way. My dear Lord, O head of the Yadu dynasty, now I have come to my senses. I'm taking shelter of your lotus feet. Please engage me in your service." End quote. This is another instance of surrendering and taking shelter of the lotus feet of Krsna. So let's look at what were those 4 types? The first was those that are appointed. Okay. And then those that are protected by the Lord. Okay, so these last few quotes and examples of devotees offering their prayers are all under that second category, who are protected by the Lord. The idea of seeking the Lord for protection, engaging in the Lord's devotional service with the idea of taking shelter. Now I try to find the place again. Okay. There are many instances in the various Vedic writings of persons who were aspiring after liberation by speculative knowledge, but gave up this process in order to take complete shelter under the lotus feet of Krsna. Examples of such persons are the Brahmins headed by Shanaka in the forest of Naimisharanya. And there is a footnote there, right after Naimisharanya, which reads, "These are the Brahmins to whom Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken by Sutta Goswami, as described in the author's Srimad Bhagavatam, Volume 1, Chapter 1. Continuing on, learned scholars accept them as devotees having complete wisdom. There is a statement in Hari Bhakti Sudadaya in which these great Brahmins and sages, headed by Shanaka Rishi, told Sutta Goswami, quote, "My dear great soul, just see how wonderful it is. Although as human beings we are contaminated with so many taints of material existence, simply by our conversing with you about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are now gradually decrying our desire for liberation." So this is more about those who are approaching the Lord in the mood of servitorship, characterized by taking shelter of the Lord. And these are persons who are on the path of liberation, but gave that up to enter into a mood of servitorship. In Padyavali, a devotee says, quote, "Persons who are attached to speculative knowledge for self-realization, who have decided that the supreme truth is beyond meditation, and who have thus become situated in the modes of goodness, let them peacefully execute their engagement. As for us, we're simply attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is by nature so pleasing, who possesses a complexion like a blackish cloud, who's dressed in yellow garments, who has a beautiful lotus-like eyes. We wish only to meditate upon him," end quote. So in the first instance, the devotees have given up the pursuit of liberation and become attracted to the mood of servitorship and have found seeking shelter there in the mood of servitorship. And now here also, these devotees are seeking shelter and wish to meditate upon the Lord, rather than to try and just mental speculation. Again, taking shelter, giving up something lesser for something greater, which is the servitor mood of service to the Lord. The first prayers in this little section were devotees who were actually afraid of the material energy. But here, these devotees, they're actually on a pretty elevated level already. They're aiming for liberation, but they're giving that up. And they're engaging in mental speculation, and they're also giving that up. Those who are from the very beginning of their self-realization attached to devotional service are called Shevanishta. Shevanishta means simply attached to devotional service. The best examples of such devotees are Lord Shiva, King Indra, King Bahulasva, King Ishwaku, Shrutadev, and Pundarik. One devotee says, quote, "My dear Lord, your transcendental qualities attract even the liberated souls and carry them to the assembly of devotees, where your glories are constantly chanted. Even great sages who are accustomed to live in solitary places are also attracted by the songs of your glory, and, observing all your transcendental qualities, I've also become attracted and have decided to dedicate my life to your loving service." So this looks like starting to go into the third type of devotee and servitorship, the associates. This is what it looks like. The others were seeking shelter, and now the first was appointed, the others were seeking shelter, and now these, from the very beginning of their self-realization, so they're more in the category of associates. In the city of Dwarka, the following devotees are known as Krishna's close associates: Uddhava, Daruka, Satyaki, Shrutadev, Satrajit, Nanda, Upananda, and Bhadra. All of these personalities remain with the Lord as his secretaries, but still they're sometimes engaged in his personal service. Among the Kuru dynasty, Bhishma, Maharaj Parikshit, and Vidura are also known as close associates of Lord Krishna. It is said, quote, "All the associates of Lord Krishna have lustrous bodily features. Their eyes are just like lotus flowers. They have sufficient power to defeat the strength of the demigods, and the special feature of their persons is that they're always decorated with valuable ornaments." So these are the servants in servitorship, mood of service and affection to the Lord. When Krishna was in the capital of Indraprastha, someone addressed him thus, quote, "My dear Lord, your personal associates, headed by Uddhava, are always awaiting your order by standing at the entrance gate of Dwarka. They're mostly looking on with tears in their eyes, and in the enthusiasm of their service, they're not afraid even of the devastating fire generated by Lord Shiva. They are souls simply surrendered unto your lotus feet," end quote. They're always awaiting your order, standing at the entrance gate of Dwarka. Out of the many close associates of Lord Krishna, Uddhava is considered the best. The following is a description of him. Quote, "His body is blackish, like the color of the Yamuna River, and it is similarly as cool. He's always decorated with flower garlands, first used by Lord Krishna, and he's dressed with yellow silk cloth. His 2 arms are just like the bolts of a door. I always wonder when the arms are like bolts of a door. We don't have doors with bolts, so it's kind of hard to picture what that is. Be nice to look that up. Bolts. These two arms are like the bolts of a door. Sometimes they had that. There were like two things that stood up like this, and then a bar was placed down, and it kept the door, couldn't open the door. Maybe something like that. Strong arms. I have to look that up sometime. Bolts of a door. His eyes are just like lotus flowers, and he's the most important devotee amongst all the associates. Let us therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto Uddhava's lotus feet. End quote. Uddhava has described the transcendental qualities of Sri Krishna as follows, quote, Lord Sri Krishna, who is our master and worshipful deity, who is the controller of Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, the controller of the whole universe as well, accepts the controlling orders of Ugrasen, his grandfather. He is the proprietor of millions of universes, but still he begged a little land from the ocean. And although he is just like an ocean of wisdom, still he sometimes consults me. He's so great and magnanimous, yet he is engaged in his different activities, just like an ordinary person. He is the proprietor of millions of universes, but still he begged a little land from the ocean. Must have been some sort of a pastime there. Begging some land from the ocean. Was that when the Dwarka was built within the sea? Although he's just like an ocean of wisdom, still he sometimes consults me. Those who are constantly engaged in the personal service of the Lord are called anugas, or followers. Okay, this is the last type. Those were the first there was the appointed, then there was those seeking shelter, and then there are the associates, and now this is the last category that's being discussed, or the followers. Those who are constantly engaged in the personal service of the Lord are called anugas, or followers. Examples of such followers are Suchandra, Mandana, Stamba, and Sutamba. They are all inhabitants of the city of Dwarka, and they're dressed and ornamented like the other associates. These specific services entrusted to the anugas are varied. Mandana always bears the umbrella over the head of Lord Krishna. Suchandra is engaged in fanning the white chamra, a bunch of hair, and Sutamba is engaged in supplying betel nuts. All of them are great devotees, and they are always busy in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Sounds like what the pujaris do in service to Krishna in his deity form. They fan the Lord, they hold the umbrella, they supply the prasadam. And these are called followers of the Lord. Well, if you're going to hold the umbrella over the Lord's head, and you're going to be following him around, you're going to be fanning him with a chamra whisk, you're going to be following him around. But these are the servants, they're serving like that. As there are anugas in Dwarka, so there are many anugas in Vrindavan also. The name of the anugas in Vrindavan are as follows: Raktak, Patrika, Patri, Madhukanta, Madhuvrata, Rasala, Suvilas, Premakanda, Marandaka, Ananda, Chandrahasa, Payoda, Bakula, Rasada, and Sarada. Descriptions of the bodily features of the Anugas in Vrindavan are given in the following statement, quote, "Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto the constant associates of the son of Maharaj Nanda. They always stay in Vrindavan, and their bodies are decorated with garlands of pearls, with bangles, bracelets of gold. Their colors are like black bees and the golden moon, and they're dressed just to suit their particular special bodily features. Their specific duties can be understood from a statement by Mother Yasoda, who said, 'Bakula, please, clean the yellowish dress of Krishna. Varida, you just flavor the bathing water with a guru scent. And Rasala, you just prepare the betel nuts. You can all see that Krishna is approaching. There is dust overhead, and the cows can be seen very distinctly.'" So again, this is personal service, doing some personal service, scenting the bath water, preparing the betel nuts, preparing Krishna's clothing, get his yellowish dress ready for Krishna. So these are the followers. Amongst all the Anugas, Raktak is considered to be the chief. The description of his bodily features is as follows, quote, "He wears yellow clothing. His bodily color is just like newly grown grass. He's very expert in singing, and he's always engaged in the service of the son of Maharaj Nanda. Let us all become the followers of Raktak in offering transcendental loving service to Krishna," end quote. So Raktak's bodily color is green, newly grown grass. It's green. The other ones were blackish like a monsoon cloud and golden, and Raktak is green. And he's singing. He's expert in singing. An example of the attachment felt by Raktak toward Lord Krishna can be understood from his statement to Rasada, quote, "Just hear me. Please place me so that I may always be engaged in the service of Lord Krishna, who has now become famous as the lifter of Govardhan Hill," end quote. The devotees of Krishna engaged in his personal service are always very cautious because they know that becoming personal servitors of Lord Krishna is not an ordinary thing. A person who offers respect even to the ants engaged in the service of the Lord becomes eternally happy. So what is there to say of one who offers Krishna direct service? So they have that element of respect, which was described, high esteem, respect. Raktak once said within himself, quote, "Not only is Krishna my worshipful and servable Lord, but also the girlfriends of Krishna, the gopis, are equally worshipful and servable by me. And not only the gopis, but anyone who's engaged in the service for the Lord is also worshipful and servable by me. I know that I must be very careful not to become overly proud that I am one of the servitors and devotees of the Lord," end quote. From the statement, one can understand that the pure devotees who are actually engaged in the service of the Lord are always very cautious and are never overly proud of their service. So they're seeing the other servants and they want to be very careful not to offend the other servants. They're aware of what a unique mercy they have to be the personal servants of the Lord. Which was the mistake Jai and Vijay made, that when the great sages, the four Kumara brothers, wanted to enter Vaikuntha for darshan with the Lord, they offended them. They were the personal servants of the Lord also. They were his guards outside his gate. So these servants, these are in Vrindavan, they are very careful not to offend any of the other servants of the Lord and not to become overly proud. This mentality of the direct servitor of Krishna is called durya. According to expert analytical studies of the direct associates of the Lord, Srila Rupa Goswami has divided these into three classes: durya, dhira, and vira. Raktak is classified among the durya, are those who are always attached to serve the most beloved gopis. So Raktak is servant of the servant. In this case, the gopis, is servant of the gopis. And that's durya. And then there's dhira and vira. So, next paragraph. One dhira associate of Krishna is the son of Satyabhama's nurse. Satyabhama is one of the queens of Lord Krishna in Dwarka, and when she was married to Krishna, the son of her nurse was allowed to go with her because they had lived together from childhood as brother and sister. Okay. So, growing up as a child, Satyabhama had a nurse, and the nurse had her own son. And Satyabhama grew up along with this boy as if they were brother and sister. The boy was the son of the nurse. And when Satyabhama was married to Krishna, her brother, who was like a brother, the son of her nurse, went with her. So this gentleman, the son of Satyabhama's nurse, used to live with Krishna as his brother-in-law. Sometimes, as brother-in-law, he used to play jokes with Krishna. He once addressed Krishna in this way, quote, "My dear Krishna, I never tried to gain the favor of the goddess of fortune who's married to you, but still I'm so fortunate that I'm considered one of the members of your house, the brother of Satyabhama." He really wasn't related at all. But there he was. This same person once expressed his pride, declaring, quote, "Lord Baladev may be a great enemy of Pralambasura, but I have nothing to worry about from him. And as far as Pradyumna is concerned, I have nothing to take from him because he's simply a boy. Therefore, I do not expect anything from anyone else. I simply expect a favorable glance of Krishna upon me. And so I'm not even afraid of Satyabhama, who's so dear to Krishna." End quote. So this is, we're discussing about dhira. And this devotee is an example of a dhira associate of Krishna in the mood of servitorship. Durya was like Raktak, who was very, very careful not to offend the other devotees. Extremely careful. And always prayed to be attached to serving the gopis, which means in their relationship to Krishna. But this fellow he's described as a Dhira associate of the Lord, and he's very heady, not concerned about Balaram, doesn't care about Pradyumna, who is, I believe, Satyabhama's son. So he would be like uncle. He would be like uncle to Pradyumna, who is, in this case, simply a young boy. So he's a mature gentleman. He's the same age as Satyabhama. He's a full-grown man. He's like uncle. And he says, all I expect is the favorable glance of Krishna upon me. I'm not even afraid of Satyabhama. He's like his sister, who's so dear to Krishna. So this is the example of a Dhira associate of the Lord. And are those the followers? Anuragas. So he's a follower of the Lord. He's not an associate, he's a follower. Interesting. Wonder what his service is. In the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 20th chapter, 25th verse, King Prithu addresses the Lord saying, quote, My dear Lord, it may happen that the goddess of fortune becomes dissatisfied with my work, or I may even have some misunderstanding with her, but I will not mind this because I have full confidence in you. You are always causelessly merciful to your servants, and you consider even their menial service to be very much advanced, so I have confidence that you will accept my humble service, although it is not worthy of being recognized. My dear Lord, you are self-sufficient. You can do anything that you like without the help of anyone else. So even if the goddess of fortune is not satisfied with me, I know you will always accept my service anyway. So there's 2 cases here of, this is King Prithu addressing the Lord. And evidently this is in the mood of servitorship. And he's also expressing some concern that even if the goddess of fortune is not pleased, the Lord will be pleased, which is interesting. So he's a little proud also. I know you will always accept my service anyway. Interesting. These are the direct servants of the Lord. It's a direct servant. Devotees attached to the transcendental loving service of the Lord may be described either as surrendered souls, as souls advanced in devotional knowledge, or as souls completely engaged in transcendental loving service. So, surrendered, advanced, completely engaged. So we've got the 3 levels here. Such devotees are called respectively neophyte, that's the surrendered, advanced, perfect, and eternally perfect, totally, completely engaged, transcendental loving service. And that's it for chapter 36. Hare Krishna.